All right, I'm gonna see if anyone tunes in. First, just sit here, practicing my live feeds, practicing talking to the phone instead of like a real person. It's easy to talk to real people because they're like right there, and you can kind of judge, where people are at. Hey, Karen, how's it going? I'm going to talk about the parallels between modern human species and hatchery fish. It's kind of one of my philosophy things. We back out and look at our species, and how are we going to help? How are we going to help? The planet kind of has to come first. Luz, hey Luz. Luz has heard this before. The hatchery fish parallel. So I started, so I'll just go ahead and I'll talk to Karen and Luz a little bit. So to think about, where to start with our species, and there's so many issues, but let's try to identify some philosophies that can kind of get us pointed in the right direction when we go down that place. Funny, Liz, funny. So a long time ago in the evolution of the human species, we can look back and we can see where the drive to make life easier, let's just say without placing blame, got out of control, to where we've made life so easy that we've eliminated some of the natural factors that facilitate life itself. So we've eliminated the struggle for life and death. Well, this is a natural part of this planet. So everything on this planet has a day-to-day fight for survival. And everything does is life and death and has dire consequences. And so we've eliminated that whole process from our daily life, So, and then from that, there's a lot of different factors. And one is the physical factor that we're not challenging ourselves. We're stagnant, we're sedentary. We don't get the exercise. We don't eat the right things. We lost that connection to the earth, to where we had to connect to the seasons, to where we had to connect to the animals and what the animals were doing, and if the animals were going to hurt us, we eliminated. For example, I like to say this because I like bears. We eliminated the grizzly bear, but the grizzly bear was a really easy, readily identifiable thing that we could see was going to hurt us. So now we don't have that. We don't have the grizzly bear. We don't have these readily identifiable physical factors that represent life and death. So where's our species? Our species is really lost right now. If we say that, these natural factors are part of a process that transcends the physical, so the natural development process of life and death, that everything has to fight for survival. Everything is in this life and death struggle for survival, but that's what facilitates life, right? Survival of the fittest, the genetics, that sort of thing. So that's where I, come back and say, so we're like hatchery fish. That we've eliminated all these, but what I was saying is that this process transcends the physical. The life and death process transcends the physical, to where now, instead of physical elements like the grizzly bear, this life and death struggle has morphed over into our mental, spiritual, emotional development. So now we have life and death dependent on those. So it's kind of like these, if you look at natural processes on the earth, it's kind of like, okay, we've got mental, physical, spiritual, emotional. And human in its early development says, oh, well, we're really on a physical plane. Let's get rid of these things that are trying to kill us. Okay, well, that's kind of understandable. Again, we'll kind of look at big picture species development. But now we get rid of those natural physical challenges, and nature doesn't say, oh, guess what, you got rid of those challenges. No, those challenges still need to be there. So now whatever was in the physical is now on the mental, spiritual, emotional. So we have more mental, spiritual, emotional challenges, right? So that's kind of like energy doesn't actually go away, it just changes form. So hatchery fish, me being an outdoorsman, kind of make this relation to anybody that knows wildlife management and that sort of thing, knows that hatchery fish are just totally inferior to wild fish. Same with hatchery plants. They're just totally inferior to natural plants and natural trees. They haven't gone through that natural selection, and all the hatchery fish and hatchery plants are they're babied, and they have just this really super unnaturally over nurturing environment, which doesn't really prepare them for real life. And they're not in a real environment, they're in an altered environment. So just like the human species is not in a real environment anymore, it's in an alternate environment. So we create this alternate, separate thing from a natural environment, which is just kind of weird when you think about it. But yeah, so the modern species is like hatchery fish, and we talk about colonization, linear mindset, that kind of thing, and compare the population segments that have been away from a natural lifestyle, away from having to live naturally for longer than other population segments. So it's like everyone's been affected now. Just some people still have a closer connection to living in a cyclical manner, living in a sustainable manner. So yeah, so basically now mainstream society, just like hatchery fish, swimming around in a cement tank, eating whatever's fed them whenever it's fed them, right? Isn't that it? It's like pre-formatted information, school systems, news, whatever. It's just and people don't know how to think. Even in schools, they don't teach like reason and logic and judgment and that sort of thing. They give you pre-formatted information. That's not really thinking. That's just you're just a storage bank for whatever's fed. So that's the hatchery fish. There's no real fight for survival. Just swimming around with no barriers, no obstacles, no natural currents, no other factors, no variables is the word I was trying to think of. No unknown variables happening there. And that's another one. People don't know how to deal with unknown variables, and is where in a natural setting it's all unknown variables, and so many people haven't been in life or death situations. I'm fortunate I've been in life and death situations kind of on a daily basis for my day job, and then also being an outdoorsman, I end up in places where there are bears and you're many miles from medical help, and just the level of concentration that you need and the instincts that you need to development that you need to development and the awareness, it's just night and day from being in an office type setting day after day. And if you're out in the woods for a few days, it's like, wow, the BS really goes away and you really see what's what. But that's kind of why I talk about the hatchery fish parallel, because it's a pretty easy thing for people to grasp. And it's, it's like wildlife management 101. It's just really a basic thing. But if we see, like what's natural, what does everything else in the universe live, and the fight for survival that everything else has versus what, mainstream society has right now. So like we that's just a concept that people have to grasp if they're gonna, make any sense out of anything, and it's just about, getting to place where people can make sense out of where we have to understand the problems in order to fix the problems, and understanding that we're not going to be able to buy or legislate our species into the future. We have to understand how the species works in this planet. We have to understand these natural parameters. And so by drawing some of these parallels to where we are now versus, where we've been for 30,000 years before we got here, basically, I think that's one way people can, start to reconnect with nature, start to reconnect with cyclical living, understand the difference between cyclical and linear, and how species survive, and start to get back to things. So that's basically my hatchery fish talk, and I just thought I'd do it live because I'm trying to practice doing live stuff, because I got so much philosophy stuff to talk about. So anyways, that's it. If anyone's still there, thanks for listening. If anyone sees it at a later date, thanks for watching. Take care.